There are places in this world where the unexplained will suddenly become akin to comfort, allowing the bizarre to bleed into the atmosphere. Within the city of Jefferson, Texas, resides such a location, in the form of a hotel that shares the city's name, in which the things that go bump in the night have begun to open doors, roam the halls, and reveal themselves. The question is why? Why is this happening? Having never been there, I can't answer that question. But on October 1st and 2nd, 50 of you will have the chance to join me for a weekend-long paranormal investigation at AGH Presents The Ghosts of the Jefferson Hotel. My friends, I am incredibly excited about this event. To those of you that have already purchased your tickets, thank you so much. I look forward to meeting you face to face in Jefferson, Texas. And for those of you who wish to join us at AGH Presents The Ghost of the Jefferson Hotel, VIP tickets are sold out and there's only 15 gold tickets left. But you can get your gold tickets while they last by clicking the ticket link, which I've posted below in the description box. Having said that, let's jump right into the In a Crowded Room podcast. Hey, what's up everybody? Chad Calek here, and welcome back to the In a Crowded Room podcast. And before we get started here, I have a favor to ask you. If you enjoy my podcast, and if you are a regular listener to my podcast, will you please click the subscribe button? I still see that about 60% of you are not subscribers, and I would love to have you as a subscriber. And after you click that subscribe button, please click the notifications bell so you get an email every time I make a new podcast. Also, please leave me your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoy the podcast, which I hope you do, please give me a like and a thumbs up. It's the best way that I know of that's absolutely free to support this podcast, and I would truly appreciate it. Thank you very much. With that being said, this podcast I'm going to talk about actually 3 different things because I get more requests than anything else to talk about the latest with Skyfall. At the same time, there are some of you that don't know the backstory with Skyfall. If that is the case, I would like to invite you to either visit Amazon Prime, where you could watch Sir No Face, Two-Face the Grey, and Phantom Rider. Skyfall comes into play in Two-Face the Grey. The entire backstory is there, and it is truly fascinating. So you can also, if you want an autographed copy of Sir No Face, Two-Face the Grey, and Phantom Rider, we have just, I think, 2 or 3 of those left. From the overruns of our DVDs, you can get an autographed copy of each of those if you would like by clicking, I'll put a link in the description box. You can click that and it'll take you right there. Having said that, there is a lot that goes on with Skyfall, but it seems to come in bunches. And there is long periods of time that I don't hear from him. Sometimes 3 months I don't hear from him. The way he contacts me is very bizarre. I get an email from him. I open it and I can screenshot it, but when I shut it, it is not in my inbox. It completely disappears. Now, when I write him, I use the email from the screenshot, and when I send it, I get an email back saying this email address doesn't exist. But yet he always emails me back from a different address. And if I didn't say it, yes, every time that he emails me, it's from a different address. So I'm not a hacker. I don't have any idea how he does it. I've looked online. I can't even figure out how. I've had a couple people who are familiar with this kind of process email me and tell me that he must be pretty advanced in the world, I guess, of hacking. But I'm pretty certain he's in my email all the time. To answer the question, has anything happened lately? I think I mentioned this earlier, that things happen all the time that I think are related to him. But the other night, something really, really bizarre happened. And I also want to say the primary reason that I don't just tell you guys every time something happens is I felt like, as I was documenting the Phantom Rider, I felt like a lot of the stuff I shared went into the documentary so people could see it. And some of you said that you loved that. You loved the idea that you heard about it and then you could actually physically see what happened. For example, the situation with my car and the alarm. That obviously was something that drove Laura and I up the wall. It was very freaky. And people knew about that before the film came out. Or the black Mercedes that was trailing me. And then people saw the film when they saw it. But other people were like, yeah, I knew all the stuff that had happened to you. It was cool to see it, but I kind of knew it. So I'm like, you know what? I don't know how much I should or shouldn't share. And maybe there's a happy medium. And what I'm fixing to tell you about perhaps is that happy medium. But before I do, we're also going to talk about the Sir No Face footage, because I recently saw a review from somebody that just pissed me off to no end. And usually I don't care if people, believe or don't believe or are critical. It's part of being a filmmaker. I've always said, if you put something out there, the worst thing that can happen is indifference. People just not caring, not commenting, not doing anything. If people are fighting back and forth about what their thoughts are, that's right in the lane that I want to be in. I don't want to be everything to everyone. There's an old line that Joe Ansley, one of my best friends, has an index case. He has this amazing song called No Good, where he says, I just love what I do, what I am to my few. And that's exactly how I feel. Of course, I want my message to reach as many people as possible, but I'm perfectly fine with the fact if I'm a loved and or / hated filmmaker. All of my favorite artists are exactly like that. The band System of a Down, I think, is perfect. I mean, they're huge, but people love them or hate their guts. That's kind of always been the lane that I'm in, and I'm perfectly cool with that. But this guy said something that really pissed me off, and I just, I'm tempted to even say his name, but I don't want to, because I don't want to bring attention to someone who puts in this little of effort to review something. And finally, at the very end, we are going to talk about PALEFACE, which is the 4th film in the Sir No Face docuseries. But back to Skyfall. So the other night I did something that I probably shouldn't have done. And I didn't mean it to fuck with people. Something truly bizarre happened, and I couldn't figure out how it happened. And I was about ready to just dump it out there for everyone. And Laura was kind of like, hey, you should do a little research on this before you put something out there, because you don't know what that is. So what happened? I'll tell you what happened, and I'll share it with you. But I know it is going to go into the PALEFACE documentary. So the other night, I'm sitting here, and earlier in the day, I used to manage bands and worked in the music business for a long time, which I can, give you 20 podcasts about that. And I have one coming up about the music business pretty soon that's really, really interesting. Some really bizarre stuff going on there. But anyways, a friend of mine that used to front this band called Mr. Plow. Years ago, I had got him a production deal with Mike Klink, who's the producer of Guns N' Roses, and he and I became great friends. And unfortunately, his band went by the wayside of a lot of bands who come out here. They came out here, 5 drug-free kids, and they discovered the world of drugs in the Hollywood Hills, and it took about a year to eat them up and spit them out. And I didn't hear from this singer for years, but he was actually a rapper, but I always thought his talent was incredible and loved the kid as a person before they all kind of went sideways. But he got a hold of me, and he has a new rap project that he's working on. And it was great. And he sent me a video of it, and it was really awesome, 15 years later to see him doing this. And so I was telling Laura about it. His name is Nick Pearson, wonderful kid, and incredibly talented. And I was like, Laura, I was all excited. I was like, you got to check this out. Like, Nick has a new project and he's killing it. The name of his group is Flotho, brand new group. They're out of Des Moines, Iowa. So if you're in Des Moines, Iowa, go see Flotho. But I opened my phone to show her the video, and this was the last video that I was sent. I took no photos. I recorded no video. Like, his video, I saved to my phone, and I had watched it several times in the car. I actually pulled over. I was driving in my car when he sent it to me, and I pulled over to watch it. So I opened my phone to show Laura this video of my friend Nick and his group Flotho. And there are 2 photos in my phone that say they were both saved there simultaneously at the exact time. The times match up. And it is what appears to be a UFO flying through what looks like the Northern Lights. And it's pretty close up. And you can see all these bizarre lights at the bottom of it. It's not a motion blur. I know what a motion blur is. It appears to be first gen. I still have work to do to confirm that, which I'm in the process of right now. I'm Google searching to see if it's anywhere on the net. There's all kinds of stuff that I'm doing to try to understand why these 2 UFO photos were in my phone. And they're pretty compelling photos. The only thing that makes it hard to see great detail is, like I said, it looks like it's flying through the Northern Lights. And it just freaked me the fuck out, man. I'm like, wow. So someone can just, I put photos in my phone? That is trippy as can be. There is no chance that they were mine, no chance that I downloaded them, no chance that I screenshotted them. They're just there. And I was so freaked out. I don't know if Skyfall did this. I'm hoping it's him. I'm hoping it is him. And I'll tell you why I say that in a little while, that I'm hoping it's him. But I did email him. And he hasn't emailed me back since I emailed the last address he used, which is what I use. The last address that he used, I emailed him to say, dude, I think I know which group you're part of. I think you're associated with Dr. Greer. And I have not heard back from him. So I messaged him again to say, hey, man, if you are the one that's accessing my phone to put pictures in my phone, don't. Email him, man, like anybody else. Don't do it, because that freaks me out. And if you do have access to my phone, get out of it, man. Christ, I'm not going to talk to you if you continue to do stuff like this, and invade my privacy. But I have not heard back from him yet. Now, this is a list of probably 20 weird things that I could tell you about. But again, I want to keep a lot of this for PALEFACE, which will be the final film. But yes, stuff like this always happens. There's been a lot of weird things that happen. For example, I thought for a minute, God, should I say this? Well, I'll just say it. I'll just say it. I thought, and there's still a part of me that still kind of thinks this, but I thought for a minute that I've actually met Skyfall. And it was about a month ago, and something really, really strange happened at the corner store. Essentially, I ran into somebody that I didn't know. I just kind of ran into this person, and we started having this conversation. And it went into a really weird place about UFOs and all this stuff. And I never gave him my name. And when I walked away, he said, "I'll see you later, Charles." Well, nobody calls me Charles, but again, Skyfall knew that that's my birth name. And this individual was really unique. But here's the thing. I had no idea how much these films are getting around until about a week ago. I went in to the 3rd Street Promenade, which is an open public area with a bunch of shops and stores and, a lot of musicians out there playing for dollars and change and tips. And it's just a cool place to spend some time. You can go chilling around that place and not spend $1 and have a blast. And I've never been stopped more in my life by people that had recognized me, which was shocking to me because I guess this UFO thing is absolutely huge right now. So maybe that was the case. But because of that, I was thinking that this guy stopped me and this conversation that we had, it could have been that he just knew who I was through the documentaries, although he never said that. In fact, part of that conversation, I ended up saying to him, it's interesting we're talking about this because I'm a documentarian and I recently made a couple documentaries on this subject. And the whole time I was talking to him, there was just that 6th sense you get, like you feel like you know someone or maybe they know you. There's a familiarity there in the conversation. And it was literally as I was walking away, there was this long pause and he just said, "I'll see you soon, Charles." And I was thinking, does he live around here? That's a weird thing to say. I don't know if that was him. My initial thought was that it was. Now, remember, if you watched all the way through all 3 films, I got an invite from him to meet him in Townsville, Australia, which I initially told him, man, I got to think about this, dude. Like, with the shooting and all that stuff that is in Phantom Rider, like, I was so freaked out with everything that's going on with Craig. I mean, Craig Powell is a soldier. That dude is a warrior because the stuff he and his family have gone through is on a whole nother level than everything that I've gone through. I mean, when you're seeing all those photos, if you follow Craig and he's camping out all the time and, it just seems like countless pictures of him and his family camping out. Part of that is they don't feel comfortable at home. I mean, the history of things that have happened to him are incredibly, incredibly terrifying. And for him to be living with what he has, which is hundreds of hours of footage of things from Cockatoo Island that multiple people have that he's split up and hidden, and I guess this is where we should talk about PALEFACE. So I get asked all the time, when is PALEFACE going to be made or when is it going to come out? Look, I am planning on making PALEFACE in 2022, but it's going to require a lot. It's going to require me going to Australia, to not only Townsville, but to Sydney and Melbourne. It's also going to require me going deep into Mexico, which, as you know, is not the safest place to be going off grid, right? I'm talking away from all the tourist areas. I'm going to have security. I'm going to have a fixer down in Mexico. If you don't know what that is, somebody who can help you pay carny and just, the whole, when you're off grid, the world works on cash down there. And you got to have somebody who's on the inside that can, keep you safe when you're moving, especially anything associated with the cartel land, which is most of the place. But same thing in Australia. In Australia, we need to go to Pine Gap as well. I'm also going to confront the government. There's a lot of things that we're setting up that we need to have security for. It's not going to be a small shoot. It's going to be a very, very big shoot. For those of you that are wondering about the story of the tattooed face man, again, he appears in Two-Face the Gray. I think I've said this in a podcast, so I could say it now. I do know his identity. I do know, I have an address from him. I have a phone number. I know a ton more about him now. And his Mexico story is fascinating, and it needs to be followed up on, because I oddly do think that he ties into this entire story, that it wasn't just a random meeting. And what's odd is Skyfall also knew who he was. Skyfall knew who the tattooed face man was. Now, what's crazy is Skyfall asked me to come meet him in Townsville. The tattooed face man is also from Townsville. That's where I met him. So a lot of people have said the tattooed face man is Skyfall, which I don't believe. Although that, clearly that would be, I jumped to that, conclusion as well, because I met the tattooed face man there. That's where he gave me the package, all that stuff. But a lot of people are from Townsville, the guy that does Julian Assange is from Townsville, so another hacker, for Christ's sakes. Townsville is a weird place. I could tell you, Craig kept telling me that. He kept saying, man, when you get up to Townsville, things are just different up there. And the people are different. Not that they're bad, but they're not at all. I found them to be incredibly kind and generous and warm and loving and all those things. But there was a very different nature to them versus anybody else that I met throughout Australia. And I've been to every city in Australia. We had every major city, I should say. We had like 6 incredible sold out shows all over that country. And I can tell you that Townsville was very unique. And there is an energy in Townsville that is very odd as well, too. So, yes, I first thought, oh my God, I wonder if this entire time I've been talking to the tattooed face man, who is now going by Daniel David Skyfall. But I don't think that's the case for a bunch of reasons. But primarily, I'm the only one who had a conversation with the tattooed face man. Other people observed it. Craig was right behind him. Justin was off to my left. There was a nature he had about him that is completely independent of the way Skyfall writes and the way Skyfall talks and what his views are. There was an edge, a very hard edge to the tattooed face man. Not that he was rude in any way. And in fact, he wasn't. He was extremely polite, but very serious and very to the point. And I knew that was coming, just the way he approached me. I say it in the film, and it's true. You know what it looks like when a man walks with purpose. Like, he was not there as a fan of mine. He was there to deliver a message and a package and be gone. But there is a ton that has happened since Phantom Rider, including the re-emergence of the Australian government, which has gotten back involved. And not to deny, their involvement with Craig or anything, or that they sanctioned the event. I want to save what they did for the film, but I can tell you what they did was incredibly freaky, because it confirmed that there is a third party that is out there digging for information. That's all I can say right now, but it will shock you when you see when Craig first told me what I'm talking about right now. When he first told me, I was like, no way, man. No way. And again, I'm not trying to be coy. I'm just trying to tell you there are some incredibly bizarre events that have been going on, and we've been documenting it this whole time. And I believe I'll be in a much better position to go make the film and do it right with safety measures in place at some point in the summer of 2022. But I will keep you guys up to speed on that. And the last thing that I want to talk about is the SIR No Face footage. Like I said, there was a guy who did this review, and you can just tell when someone hasn't watched a movie, or certainly hasn't watched all of it, because he gets to the part about the Sir No Face footage. And he's like, "Oh, this is just so easy. It's just some dude wearing an outfit, a spandex outfit." And then he went and found some spandex outfit online. He's like, "See, that's all it is." Well, first off, it can't be a dude because it's shorter than Craig's waist, which is demonstrated in the film. Once I realized that when Craig did the recreation, that his camera was pointed up because Craig's really tall, and the camera was pointed a little more down when Sir No Face was filmed, I was able to line up where the door handle was in both photos, which revealed that Sir No Face was like 3.5 feet tall, 4 feet tall maximum. I mean, he's like, Sir No Face is like the size of a very young child. So it's obviously not a dude wearing a suit. And there's just a lot of detail. See, this is why when I first started going down this road with Craig, I didn't know Craig, right? Over the years, we've become very good friends. It's because I found him to be an incredibly credible and honest man. But in the beginning, I didn't know him. I mean, sure, nice enough guy, but I looked at it like this documentary, either way, is going to be amazing because it's either going to prove that this footage is real or it's going to be like the biggest debunking, I got you, you con man type of documentary ever. And some would argue the latter would be even more exciting. I don't know. But when I started realizing the facts behind the Sir No Face footage, it just blew my mind. Let's start with the fact that Sir No Face does not appear until over 4.5 hours. It's like 4 hours and like 38 minutes or something like that. 4.5 hours after the camera is running, Sir No Face appears. So if this is a child, someone would have to hide a child at night when the island shuts down, basically at sundown. They would have to just leave a child inside this building and say, sit here for 4.5 hours, don't make a sound, don't piss, don't do anything. Sit here in the jet black dark, and in 4.5 hours, peek your head out, by the door. Now, the reason I said don't make a sound, and this was shocking to me too, is when they're setting up the camera, and even during Craig's recreation, Sir No Face's officers' quarters is practically falling down. They've restructured it since, but it was they wouldn't let people inside of it, like regular people, not the team that the government sanctioned to go do this investigation. Regular people, they wouldn't, like civilians that just came over to visit the island, they wouldn't let them inside that building, or much less any building, but that one specifically because it was old and the thing was like, deemed like a hazard to be in. So when Craig had access to it, specifically because the government gave him access, when they did the recreation, as they're walking around, you can hear every last footstep. It's like any old house. It was like my old house in Persia. Like, you can hear everything. These creaks are so loud. Even when Craig went back to the door, and he just leans forward, it's just, like you could hear the wood, like all this stuff. Sir No Face made zero sound, okay? Zero sound. So now we'd have to sit a child in there for 4.5 hours and somehow make sure he makes zero sound. Also, this idea that someone was wearing some slinky suit or some, I guess, I don't know, spandexy suit. When Craig goes back to do the recreation, there's no question who it is. It's Craig. You can see his nose, his eyes, his mouth, his teeth, his ears, his hair, all that stuff. One thing they got right was the distance when they did the recreation. No Face has the most bizarre facial features, which is to say he has a lack of them. He has a lack of them, which is why people said, that looks more like a gray. Because it does. It does. And if it was a child, you would be able to see like the features. And if it was a child who pulled a spandex over his head, it would look like a child who pulled a spandex over his head. You can see incredible detail. Whatever's going on with Sir No Face, whatever's going on with the face, it's something totally bizarre because it is really concave, distorted. Like, I'm telling you that if I went back there and did a recreation with a child in a spandex suit, you'd be like, oh, who left the child in the spandex suit? You can see everything really, really well. Why Sir No Face has this bizarre movement and these lack of facial features that almost look blurred is really bizarre. It's another inconclusive thing. Like, inconclusive meaning I can't give you a reason why he looks the way he does. Sir No Face I'm talking about. But I can tell you that in the recreation, you can see detail fine. You just couldn't with Sir No Face. And again, I don't know why. So beyond that, look, I've interviewed everybody, every member of Craig's team, and I've been on the island. I've met the security. The security chased us around forever because, you know, once I went over there and we had an event, the day after we had an event there, and Craig shows me this, suddenly the government just throws them off the island without explanation and shuts everything down. So we had to go over there, quote, as civilians with hidden cameras after the initial time that I went there. And, you know, I went up there and you could see all the locks are on the doors. I mean, they said, listen, at night when we left, the reason the camera was left in here and locked off is because the security said, look, we can't have doors open. We have to lock the doors. And I totally believe that. Now, remember also the public ferries stop. They stop coming. I think the last one's like 7 or 8 p.m. So, you know, who's the child? You know, who would be the child that someone would sneak on the island, then have to jimmy and break open the door, then would have to find a way to move across the camera and hide him without being seen. Now, keep in mind, and this is the one detail I wish I would have put into the film, there is no other door. There is no other access point that No Face could have moved into position without walking in front of the camera. There is no access point. So in order to get where Sir No Face was, he would have to walk in front of that camera. And he clearly doesn't, obviously. And last but not least, when Sir No Face comes around the corner, okay, and he has this weird kind of fluid movement and he looks into the camera and then he goes back. He's not coming or going back into a room. If you look, the doors open outward and they're not all the way shut. They're at an angle. So Sir No Face literally appears to come out of the wall. All right. The door is shut probably 95%. There's just a little tiny crack. And you can see this in the recreation because Craig is not able to hide. He gets as far over as he can possibly go, and there's still like a fourth of his body hanging out because it is not a room. It is a wall. There are two doors that are opened inward, probably 95% open. There's a slight crack at the end. And that's how No Face appears and then disappears. Okay? Craig in the recreation is just, I mean, it almost looks foolish. And I'm not that he was foolish. He did exactly what he should have done. But I'm saying it looks funny because he can't hide anywhere. There's nowhere to hide. There's no room to step into or to step back around. So the idea that this is some adult that's wearing a spandex outfit is absolutely wrong and ridiculous. So if you do come across this guy's review, please keep the facts in mind. Please. The same thing with the flashing lights. This guy was like, well, someone could have just had a flashlight and just turned it on. Listen, context is everything. I interviewed so many people that saw the lights because Craig and his team did exactly what they should have did. After these lights were just going off, on call, by the way, they're asking Sir No Face to light up the room, and every single person said the same thing. The light came from everywhere. from everywhere. And it was so bright, there were no shadows because it was just blasting everywhere. Everywhere. And whenever I review footage, I start with context. What I mean is, what's the situation? Who's in the room? Who's responding? How authentic are the responses? You go look at that footage and listen to the absolute shock that everybody, the wonderment, the mind-blowing thing that you can hear it in their voices, right down to the one guy that was Craig's travel agent that was losing his mind. Like, it was right there, he says, the light went off right here, like right in front of him. And that's the thing. Everybody felt like, everybody I talked to, I said, where did the light come from? And they said it came from everywhere, but it always felt in front of you. But it came from everywhere. And I'm like, wow. Like, so you would feel like the light would blast and emanate from in front of you, but then they felt like it was like all enveloping. And every single person described it that way. There's the interview that I had with Rob, where he's on Craig's team, where I tell him, I'm like, this sounds crazy, man. Like, and literally, the guy, he's like, I don't care. He's like, I don't care. I was out on the island 12 times. I saw the lights 12 times. And let's not forget that Craig also went and got people that they didn't even know. And he also got people from the government. And they all came out and they all experienced this together. So I'm certain for a fact that the Sir No Face footage is absolutely authentic. The only question mark is, what is it? What is it? Is it a ghost? Is it a gray? Or other? I don't know. But it is mind-blowing to me. And then you take all the other context. The weirdness of Craig being hand-selected out of the blue by the government. He didn't know when he met the government. And there's countless teams throughout Australia. Countless teams. Some a lot bigger than Craig. Some a lot smaller. And just out of the blue, they pick him. The whole thing was truly bizarre. And the only question that remains is, was Craig sent there to document Sir No Face, or was Craig sent there to document Sir No Face as they, meaning the government, were actually documenting him and his team and their encounters with this thing? Because if there was some kind of, either, as Dr. Greer believes, these tissue/droids that are made to, and a lot of people think this, that the little grays are droids. Or if there is a ghost, or if there is some kind of other entity, and it's being seen by everybody, and you don't know what it's going to do, look, man, I could totally see, it just doesn't seem like a far-fetched thing for the government to say, hey, we need to know what this thing is and how it interacts with people. And let's bring some people in here to experience it, watch them, see what their interactions are like. Oh, and by the way, if they're paranormal ghost hunters, if we ever just want to make fun of them and call them crazy, we can do that. It just seems like to me, it's a possibility. To say that it's not a possibility is completely irresponsible. I'm not saying I know for sure that's what it was. I don't know for sure that's what it was. That's why this thing is such a mystery. That's why it's such a mystery. So I invite all of you to, again, watch Sir No Face. You can watch on Amazon Prime. That's a very easy way to do it. You can watch Two-Face on Amazon Prime and Phantom Rider. But look at that footage and everything that I told you now. And of course, all this stuff's like in the film as well. But really check it out and look at it. And I'm positive that you'll come to the conclusion that I came to, which is, that's not a person. It's not a human being. I can tell you that. Sir No Face is not a human being. It's not. I'm telling you, it's not. So anyways, like I said, there are, if you also want autographed DVDs, there's a link that I'll put in the description box below. But like I said, I just wanted to discuss all this, give you guys the latest on PALEFACE, let you know the latest on Skyfall, and also address the Sir No Face footage. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of the In a Crowded Room podcast. I will be back tomorrow with more. All the best.